Hey everybody, it's Galmadex and welcome back to some more Magic Arena. Today I'll be playing a Core Sets Premier Draft. This is a special draft format, kind of a mixer draft format, where we'll be getting one pack from three different sets. This time one pack of M19, M20, and M21, the three most recent Core sets. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and see what we want to pick pack one here. We do have a fun rare, Death Baron, and there are going to be zombies in every single one of these packs. Every single one of these sets at the very least, so that could be a decent choice. Plague Mare's nice, being able to potentially wipe some small creatures off your opponent's board. Salvager of Secrets is a great value play, bringing back your best instant or sorcery from grave, and Lich's Crest is just a nice flexible removal spell. I think I'm going to run with Death Baron here, be a little silly about it. I don't think it's actually like the best card there, but there are some fun potential synergies to work with this card. So the reason I wouldn't tend to pick pack one that if you're just trying to be as competitive as possible is because it's a very narrow card, focusing on only a specific tribe, a specific couple of tribes, and usually in your early picks in the pack, you want to try to stay a little bit open, so whatever you're getting past is something you could potentially jump in, but we're going to just stay on the Death Baron train here with a Reassembling Skeleton. This is a card I like in general in the Core Sets format, just by itself. 2 mana for a 1/1, and for 2 mana you can bring it back from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped, so it's a great card if you have any sacrifice outlets, cards that you can sacrifice creatures to generate some form of value. So Reassembling Skeleton has been great in pretty much every Core Set format, and the fact that it is a skeleton to go alongside with Death Baron, plus one that we can repeatedly get back, means it's already a fantastic combo with something in our deck. Pretty happy to just scoop up a Reassembling Skeleton in pick 2 there. Alright, another incredible combo to go with the Death Baron, the Skeleton Archer. Skeleton Archer is a decent card by itself. 4 mana for a 3/3, does 1 damage to a target when it comes into play, so it can snipe some small creatures like Skyscanner. This would be a popular creature because it's a completely colorless card, fits into any deck, replaces itself when you cast it by drawing you a card. Skyscanner, just a nice flexible kind of card that Skeleton Archer is just going to shoot in the face. But of course, it's also an incredible combo with Death Baron because it will have Death Touch by the time its enter the battlefield effect resolves, meaning that the 1 damage it does to any target is going to be lethal damage. So Skeleton Archer with Death Baron there, we are very much drafting a themed deck today. Some Skeleton Tribal. And I don't believe that the Death Baron buffs any vampires, unfortunately, no, just skeletons and zombies, so it's not going to be a combo with Epicure of Blood or Skymarch Bloodletter, although I think Skymarch Bloodletter is the best black card in this pack. Infectious Horror is just not a good rate, even if we are playing Zombie Tribal. 4 mana for a 2/2 is very, very weak. Sure, it does make your opponent lose 2 life when it attacks in, but being only a 2/2 body means by the time that this is on the board and attacking, that would be around turn 5, your opponent's very likely to just have a 3/3 or something that can easily shut this off if we don't have like a Death Baron alongside it. So Infectious Horror, a bad enough card here that even though it could potentially combo being tribal, I'm gonna skip on it for a Skymarch Bloodletter here, which is just a great evasive threat. We could also look to move into another color here, Departed Deckhand being the best card to move into another color. That's a 2 mana 2/2, and can't be blocked by non-spirits, and for 4 mana you can make another one of your creatures unblockable by non-spirits for a turn. So it's just a really good way to chip in for some damage no matter how the board state looks. So that would be good if we wanted to hop into another color, but I definitely wouldn't be looking to like that red, green, gold uncommon because we're so heavy into black here. Not really going to try to jund them out. And luckily for us here, the best card in this pack, or at least one of the best cards, is pretty easily Strangling Spores. Sure, it's a lot of mana for this removal, but in the Core Set formats, most of the removal's a little bit slow, a little bit mediocre, so this is about on par with what you'd expect for your removal. 4 mana for -3/-3 till end of turn at instant speed. Again, a bit slow, but we'll take any removal we can get, really. Alright, now we do have a Doomed Center, which is going to be a good combo with the Death Baron, spitting out a zombie token, and a good combo with any sacrifice outlets, so it fits with the theme that Reassembling Skeleton fits in as well. So having those 2 cards in our deck makes any sack outlets better. We could take Cinder Barons to make splashing in red easy, just in case. We could take like Switcheroo in blue. Kind of a mind control effect, a little weaker than mind control. You do have to give your opponent something, but if you have some expendable creatures, This is a solid removal spell slash bomb, because you are taking their best creature. I think I'm just going to stay to black here and just take Doom to center, just stay pretty wildly open as we head into the next pack, just being monocolored here still. So we could take another Skymarch Bloodletter, another great just evasive card on turn 3, or we have Sift as well, which is just a very powerful draw spell. 4 mana to draw 3 cards, then discard a card. You're digging 3 cards deep and keeping the best 2, even 3 of them if you discard something you already had in hand. I think Sift is a really good card. And you know, I think I'm cool missing out on another Skymarch Bloodletter, even if we don't end up in blue. Alright, Nightmare's Thirst is fine by itself. 1 mana for -1/-1 until end of turn. If you have more life gain, it will deal more damage, or it'll give more -X/-X. So with Skymarch Bloodletter, it would be -2/-2 if we cast it after we cast that. These black cards over here are all pretty mediocre. Not a big fan of these. In fact, the whole pack, except the uncommons, is pretty mediocre. So do we want a great counterspell in blue? Or just an okay removal spell in black? I think I'm going to take the great counterspell in blue. 4 mana to counter creatures a bit much, but you draw a card off of this, meaning this card just immediately replaces itself. That's just a pretty excellent deal. And I am definitely looking to be blue-black now. I think now that we have 2 great blue uncommons in Sift and Bone to Ash. Here I'll go ahead and take another Skymarch Bloodletter. Child of Night is a pretty solid 2-drop, but hopefully I can just get little Doom Dissenter type, Reassembling Skeleton type 2-drops, because those also combo with Death Baron, and those are cards that were reprinted in several of the core sets, so it's possible that we get some of those in later packs. And blue's looking pretty open, which is great. Now we have a Dwindle here, which is, again, I mean, it's core set style removal. It's not the most exciting thing ever, but it is good removal for the core sets format. 3 mana for -6/-0, and when the enchanted creature blocks, destroy it. So it's not even like it can sit there blocking forever. As soon as it blocks once, it does die. And I don't love the Snapping Drake there. It's just a bit expensive when you compare it to other flyers in the format, like the Avenwind Mage or the Skymarch Bloodletters. And yeah, I'm not going to play a Mind Rot, so I'll grab an Avenwind Mage. And I guess we'll scoop up and Anticipate here, not really feeling the very filler 2 mana 2/1. We'll grab the filler draw spell here. And Gearsmith Prodigy is just not going to be worth it. However, Vampire Neonate or Scholar of Stars could both end up being good. Probably more likely Vampire Neonate ends up being good for us. We're not likely to get a ton of... Uh-oh, I made a card disappear. Not likely to get a ton of good artifacts. But Vampire Neonate, there are some cards in some of the core set formats that do care about when you gain life, like that -1/-1 removal spell that we showed off earlier. So maybe we'll have a good reason to play Neonate, and even without any, it is an 0/3 that starts draining your opponent life when you run out of things to do. It's something to dump your mana into, so not bad at all. Alright, so we have a solid blue removal spell here, Sleep Paralysis, 4 mana for an aura. Tap whatever creature you put it on and keep it tapped as long as that aura stays down. Or a Gorging Vulture, 3 mana for a 2/2 flyer. It does mill you 4 cards when you play it, but you do gain life for every creature you milled, and there's a little bit you could do to combo with that. Here we already have Reassembling Skeleton comboing with it, so if we mill that skeleton, we will be bringing it back, so that could be decent. I think I'm going to slam the Sleep Paralysis first, maybe wheel the Gorging Vulture. I feel like that would be more likely, although neither are particularly high picks. So, could wheel either of them. So some big dorky orcs here in the uncommons. Not super excited about either of them. I do really like this 2-drop, 2 mana for a 2/2 with lifelink during your turn, just a pretty good deal. There's another Sleep Paralysis. We do have Sleep Paralysis Dwindle and a Bone to Ash now. There's also Sanitarium Skeleton. If we'd taken that Gorging Vulture, I'd probably grab Sanitarium Skeleton here. Although it is, again, a skeleton for Death Barons, that is another exciting reason to grab it. Yeah, I think I'm still going to grab it here just because Death Baron, and of course another card to work with Sacrifice Outlets, means we're going to take those very highly. But yeah, I would just be off the walls happy right now if we had that Gorging Vulture. Alright, another Sanitarium Skeleton. I guess I'll take it, get a really good theme going on here. There's a Bone to Ash or a Sleep Paralysis that could wheel here. Those would be great. Not much else going on in this pack for us. Ooh, is that a zombie? That is a zombie. Tome-bound Lich. 3 mana for a 1/3 Death Touch Lifelinker. When it enters the battlefield or deals combat damage to a player, you get to draw a card, then discard a card. Well, that's a great rate, even if it never hits your opponent. 1/3 Death Touch Lifelinker to block very well, and you get that enter the battlefield trigger. Seems like a pretty excellent card that I'm happy to take here. Although Frostlinks is also great, just another fantastic enter the battlefield effect, slowing down a card of your opponent's. Dismal Backwater's quite solid, get that blue-black mana fixing in here, or even Bone Splinters is an option. Although, yeah, I mean, we are the deck for it. We do have Reassembling Skeleton and double Sanitarium Skeleton, so we have Sacrificial Fodder for Bone Splinters. But I'm just going to take the fancy gold card here, the Tome-bound Lich. Seems like the most powerful card out of those, and we're late enough into the pack now that I'm not guaranteed to wheel like anything at this point. Alright, a Fortress Crab, a big old 5/5 Death Toucher, or a little 1/3 that can drain life later on. I'm just going to take this little 1/3 thing, fill out the curve a little more. Well, best card in this pack is this big green Howling Giant, but very unlikely we get to play that. But I am just not going to cast Unholy Indenture, even though it has wonderful artwork from Semikin in there. Nor am I going to cast a Zephyr Charge, so I guess I'll just take the strongest card in the pack, just in case we get to move into green. This pack, all of the packs in pack 2 here have been just showing off some incredible green cards, so I think it would be more likely we'd get to move into green than any other color. Alright, and these black and blue cards are again pretty unexciting. If you have like a million good enter the battlefield effects, you can play around with the Portal of Sanctuary. Befuddle's pretty filler. Epicure's pretty filler. I'm just going to take another good green card here. Random little elemental. Again, very unlikely to head that way, but just in case. So do we like Cerulean Drake as just the 2 mana 1/1 flyer protection from red? If we happen to play against red, that'll be fun. Or do we just like Moat Piranhas? Really slow down our opponent. 2 mana for a 3/3 defender. Sure, it never attacks in, but it is going to trade into something, being a 3-power creature. And it holds 2 power stuff at bay. Yeah, I'll take a Moat Piranhas here. I feel like these Cerulean Drake might be a little too specific there. Now we have double Overgrowth Elemental for a potential green deck here. So we have a little bit of an elemental theme too. But again, I think it's probably too late to veer off in another direction here. It is cool though that we've gotten all those. Ooh, Blood Burglar is excellent here. Gonna scoop that up. Vial of Dragonfire is not terrible either if you're really hurting for removal, but we're not hurting that badly. We do have Dwindle, Sleep Paralysis, Sift, Bone to Ash, all potential removal spells if cast at the correct time. Alright, another Sleep Paralysis. I'll take that over a Bone to Ash simply because it's going to deal with anything Bone to Ash would deal with. Even if we top deck it after the threat has already come out. Whereas Bone to Ash, yeah, it's a lot better if you have the mana up right when they're casting the spell, but it just has less opportunities to get cast. There's less of a window of when it's good, because it's only good at that one time when they're casting the spell. Still going to play the one that we already have, but I'm not going to take another one over another Sleep Paralysis. Alright, so the final pack here's the M21 pack, and we do have a zombie here, a Flash Zombie 2, 3 mana for a 3/1 Flash. When it enters the battlefield, draw X cards, where X is the number of creatures that died under your control this turn. So if you can get one of your 2 mana creatures to trade off into something on an attack and then drop this on turn 3, that's pretty good. Or trade into something on a block and then drop it. If you're drawing at least 1 card off of this, it's pretty solid. And if you draw any more than that, you're living the absolute dream. Seems fine to me. Not super exciting. I mean, Skeleton Archer might even be more exciting, just because of the Death Baron combo. You know, I'm still going to roll with the rare here, but I could see a good argument for just taking Skeleton Archer instead. This is not the most exciting rare. What is this Manticore? 3 mana for 3/4. Discard a card when you cast it. Protection from Planeswalkers and can deal damage to Planeswalkers or gain indestructible. Does not seem all that great on a limited standpoint. Having to discard a card to play it is a pretty hefty fee, even though it can get indestructible. Of course, all of the Planeswalker stuff is pretty irrelevant. That being said, the other choices for us are Rise Again, which is not really good unless you can combo with it, which Tomebound Lich could get there, I guess, if we're really lucky. Draw a card, discard a really expensive creature to Rise Again, but it's not likely. You know, Rise Again's the coolest card in the pack. I'll just take that. Maybe we just can happen to pick up a lot of the blue-black Reanimator cards that are in M21. That was definitely a strategy in that color pair. So we have the option between two great blue cards here. Roman Ghostlight is just fantastic by itself. 3/2 flyer, bounce something when it comes to play. Rousing Reed's pretty good by itself, but really good if we can do the reanimation thing. It's another card that lets us draw 2 and then discard a card, so we could discard a creature to reanimate if we're lucky. I'm going to go a little funky with it. I'm going to take the Rousing Reed over the Ghostlight, even though the Ghostlight is so individually powerful. I just think the idea of having a little bit of Reanimator in here seems really fun to me, if we can get it going. And here I guess we just take a Walking Corpse as a zombie. We've got a lot of 3-mana stuff here, so I'm not really hurting for a Teferi's Protege, although it is another card to draw and discard cards for the Reanimator theme. And I guess a lot of our 3-mana stuff is non-creature. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 6 actual 3-mana creatures. Could definitely just cut like a Wind Mage or something. You know, I could go with a Protege here. Walking Corpse is also pretty replaceable. It's just cool because it's a zombie. There's also a black-green dual land there we could have taken to try to splash some of this in, but the only card that's powerful enough to try to splash in is Howling Giant, and that is double green, so quite a difficult splash, needing 2 mana of its color. Alright, well this is easily Sublime Epiphany, one of the strongest limited bombs ever. Just as soon as your opponent casts a spell, counter their spell, bounce with their best card, copy your best card, and draw a card. Massive, massive swing every time. Sublime Epiphany is just absolutely ridiculous. And we're not going to take anything over that. So we do have a Rise Again, alongside Tomebound Lich, Rousing Reed, Teferi's Protege, at least as ways to discard cards. And we don't have much going on top end. Our curve is like a bunch of 4-mana cards, and then 1 5-mana, 1 6-mana. So I think we can take Gloomsower here, so we have something fun to potentially Rise Again, and give us a little more like game-ending power in our high mana cost cards. And there we go, Obsessive Stitcher, the gold uncommon for the Reanimator strategy. If we didn't start going for this random Reanimator theme with the Gloomsower and some of the other discard spells, then I wouldn't take this here. We could just take Skeleton Archer to go with our Death Baron, but I'm having a lot of fun just living the dream in Magical Christmas Land here, kind of pivoting into Reanimator strategies in Pack 3. Alright, so Unsubstantiate's decent interaction, can slow your opponent down, bouncing their creature at instant speed, or just bouncing whatever spell they cast. Village Rites is fine here with skeletons. Frost Breath is not. Village Rites are Unsubstantiate here. I'm going to go with Village Rites. I like a bit of card draw because our Reanimator theme is going to be a little bit flimsy, just that we're not going to have a lot of good cards to reanimate, like the Gloomsower here. So we're going to need some card draw to make sure that we're making it to our cards that combo together. So here I'm going to take Tellurian Kraken, so at least I have one more card to reanimate, even if it's not as exciting as the Gloomsower, but just make the deck a little more consistent in that way. Then all of this is nonsense that I don't want to play. Just all too expensive for its cost. And a second Rise Again. All right. Our reanimation theme now quite a bit more consistent. Well, now we have 2 green sources without any work, although Library Larcenist is pretty good, especially with Rousing Reed. I don't want to go too insane here. I don't want to go for the full pivot into Reanimator and also try to splash in the double green card here, even though we could have had a green-blue duel as well. That would have been really cool, because then we would have had, you know, 2 green sources in the deck without needing to have any non-black or blue sources. That being said, in order to splash a double green card, we'd have to still put in like 2 forests after those 2 dual lands, so I think that's just maybe a little too much work, and we already have so much cool stuff going on in this deck, it's not necessary to splash in the big old Howling Giant here. So let's see what the best way to build this deck is going to be for the Reanimator kind of strategy. I'm going to put in everything that is remotely playable and then go ahead and cut everything. Alright, so I put all of our remotely playable stuff back into the deck. I'm putting all of the card styles off, just because I'm not a huge fan of them, especially the Parallax card styles. I'm just not interested in, and I like when the deck's all uniform, it all looks the same. Alright, so we get to cut 12 cards out of here. I feel like moving more into sort of just a tap out combo kind of thing going on, where early game we're just tapping out to drop down creatures, but then later, you know, just tap out for a rise again. I don't feel like often I'll be holding up mana. I kind of want to just cut pretty much every instant from this deck. Our counterspells are all significantly worse if we don't have a lot of flash or a lot of instant speed stuff, and since I'm already looking to cut a lot of that kind of stuff, should probably just be cutting the counterspells too. So I'm going to cut, also Read the Tides is just super expensive. Cut the counters and Anticipate, but maybe leave Village Rites in. And we do have 3 skeletons and not much going on to sacrifice them, which is unfortunate. But we do still have the Death Baron for them, of course. So still need to cut 8 more cards here. 5 2-mana creatures. Vampire Neonate doesn't really combo with what we have. Sanitarium Skeleton a much better combo because it combos with Death Baron and with our draw discard. Any of our cards that let us draw a card and then discard a card, all of a sudden discarding a card is a very low drawback because we can just discard something that can come back from our graveyard anyway. So I do like Sanitarium Skeleton with those cards. With Tomebound Lich, Protege, Rousing Reed, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'll cut the Neonate here. Kind of want to cut some 3-mana stuff. We've got a giant chunk going on at 3 mana. Don't want to be caught up with a deck that's entirely 3-mana cards. We do have to make some options here, though. I'm definitely keeping an Obsessive Stitcher, Tomebound Lich, and Death Baron. Maybe cutting the Wind Mage, maybe cutting the Larcenist. The Larcenist is excellent with ways to give it evasion. The only way that we have that we can make sure this gets in is a Rousing Reed to give it flying. I don't see any other ways in this deck to make this evasive or to bring it back from our graveyard. Like, we're not going to rise again on a 1-2, even if it has a good ability. So it's not like we have a lot of graveyard recursion or anything for this. See, Larcenist is feeling a little off here, even though it's generally a good card. I still don't love Standard Bearer, but it is a Zombie Knight. It is filling that role. It's also a rare. Just a little fancier. Just show off our souped up Ferrari with a terrible engine. 4 cards to cut now. We are down to 17 creatures, so we do have a lot of non-creature stuff going on here. I'm definitely leaving in Sift. That's a great draw spell. We still have Rousing Reed and Sift. I don't want to cut either of those. So I guess because we just have better draw spells, we can cut the Village Rites. We have draw spells that are less restrictive and draw more cards. Sure, yeah, we can cut a Village Rites here. And 3 cuts to go. Could definitely see cutting 1 Sanitarium Skeleton. Just don't have a ton of stuff to combo with them. Moat Piranhas isn't super exciting either. I do still like having a lot of 1-2 mana stuff. That would be the next creature I could cut here. We are cutting down to a pretty low creature count though, so especially with like the Lily on a standard bearer gets a lot worse the less creatures we have. Yeah, I could even just see cutting Moat Piranhas and the standard bearer. I did make arguments for leaving the standard bearer in, but that was for leaving it in over other stuff that we cut. And now I can't see massive arguments for cutting cards other than it here. Unless we want to get a really funky looking curve. Just cut a lot of 2-mana stuff. I don't think there are other like 3-mana cards that are worse than Liliana's standard bearer. All of our 3-mana stuff's pretty great. Like maybe Skymarch Bloodletters would come the closest, but they're just deceptively good with just that flying, that evasion there. They give us defense against flyers too. But if we did want to cut them, what would our deck look like? We could put the standard bearer back in then. And then I suppose we could also put in the Moat Piranhas or something again. Moat Piranhas doesn't really help trigger the standard bearer. I guess it does on blocks, but not on attacks. In the interest of making this deck as fancy as possible, even if it's not correct, I'll just hedge my bets here and go with 1 Bloodletter, 1 standard bearer. Not confident on the final cuts to this deck, on what the exact best build would be. I'll give you one last look at the full sideboard, so you can make your assessments yourself. This is what we have left out of the deck and what is in the deck. But I am going to go ahead and now switch our lands to some M20 lands. Or just some core set lands in general. One of these sets has my favorite island. My favorite non-full art island on Arena. Must be M19. It is. It's got the Chippy Island from Shards of Alara that was reprinted in this core set. Just a beautiful Esper Island here. Really showing off. Esper was the Shard of Alara that was all about artifacts and just like perfection and filigree and stuff. Just showing off that even the lands of their world were just these perfected geometrical, you know, like the clouds are like shaved, they're like cut off at the bottom. I don't know, just a really cool island in my opinion. And then for the swamp, I don't know, we'll just do some core set swamp. None of the swamps at M19 are as good as that island. Or, you know, really any of the swamps on Arena. Let's see what M21's got. It's got the same swamps. What about M20? As always, there are timestamps in the description below to skip to the gameplay as we near the end of the deck building here. But I'm going to make things all fancy here. All right, and our deck did manage to get a reanimation theme in the end with Obsessive Stitcher to bring things back from the grave and to throw them into the grave with the draw discard, double rise again to bring them back, a couple discard spells on Rousing Reed, Sift, and just a couple big cards, Tolarian Kraken and Gloomslower. Not a lot of cards to reanimate, but still went for that reanimation theme. So we are going to go with blue-black reanimation here and have a pretty fun time with it. Playing something pretty unique. Usually in the core sets draft format, the absolute safest way to draft is to just take the best card on its lonesome in each pack. You can't go for too many focused synergies between 3 core sets. Core sets are some pretty basic draft formats, but I went for reanimation a little bit here. It's not looking like it's going to super pay off. I guess what we could do, you know, one thing I didn't consider, this would be a really bold move, but we've got a few ways to discard cards in here. We could throw our Howling Giant back in here, the 7-mana green card, just as a 3rd card to reanimate. And you know what? I'm really interested in that, now that I think of it. Like, it may not be the best idea, but it's hilarious, and it'll be fun. So I cast this on Skeleton just because I wanted to draw 2 here. We also do have a Rise again, so if we had hit a good creature, we could discard it to bring back. I don't think I want to discard Standard Bearer, but I'm definitely going to want to cast Sift next turn, so I want this land. I don't want to discard Removal either. Maybe I just discard the Rise again. It seems fine to me. We're not going to have anything to reanimate for a while. At least we can't guarantee that we will. Alright, mono red from our opponent and a Gadric on turn 3, a 5/4. Can't attack unless they control 4 or more artifacts at the beginning of their end step. Create a treasure token for each non-token creature that died this turn. Well, we're not going to chip through that anytime soon. Guess we can cast Death Baron to give our skeleton Death Touch so we can keep attacking in. Or cast the Sift. We can wait on the Sift to commit more to our board state first. Get some more pressure in. Don't really need to cast Sift until we run out of things to do. So I guess that was one thing I did not consider last turn, when I was so concerned with keeping the 4th land for Sift. I am still going to want to cast Sift, but not for a moment here. So red and green, they cast a Sabertooth Mauler this turn, which is a 3/3. At the beginning of their end step, they put a +1/+1 counter on it if a creature died that turn. So we could just kill that right now if we want. We could also cast Standard Bearer and Skeleton, but then we're not drawing a card off Standard Bearer. You know, with Death Baron on the board, I'm not that scared of this 3/3. I think I can just pass turn here, because all 3 of these are instant speed. Strangling Spores is instant speed, Liliana's Standard Bearer's instant speed, and Reassembling Skeleton's ability is instant speed, so we can kind of just do whatever we need to next turn. Okay, and I can trade our Liliana Standard Bearer for the Mauler, but that would involve not drawing a card, and I am a greedy player today. We have Sift and Sublime Epiphany to draw more cards, but I'm still trying to draw a card off Standard Bearer here. Alright, Catalyst Elemental from our opponent, 3 mana for a 2/2. They can sacrifice it to add 2 red to their mana pool. Alright, let's just get our skeleton back here. And I suppose I am holding on to Standard Bearer for maximum greed. Doing that next turn, because our Reassembling Skeleton is going to be a Death Toucher, can trade into anything they attack in with. Tomebound Lich is the draw. Pretty great draw. If I get mega greedy, I could try to draw land off of this and then cast Standard Bearer and Tomebound Lich, but that's like astronomically greedy. That's a little much even for me. Alright, so I think it's highly likely Reassembling Skeleton trades for something here, even if they don't want to send the Mauler, and they'll probably send in a 2/2. Although I suppose the Skeleton does always come back from the grave, so they might not. They do decide to keep sending the 2/2s in, so we'll trade with the Vigilant one. Not super worried about them getting 2 more mana. They have 6 mana already. I can't imagine they're playing too many 8 mana cards. And even if they are, they're only like 2 lands away here. Ooh, a Rabid Bite as well to go ahead and kill Death Baron. It's going to be another creature dying here unless I Strangling Spores. Death Baron's really fun with Reassembling Skeleton, but I can also just draw a ton of cards off Standard Bearer. Because if I let this happen, I draw 3 cards off of Standard Bearer. No, under your control, I draw 2 cards, so it doesn't count that I killed one of their creatures. So either draw 2 cards off Standard Bearer and get Skeleton back, or just kill the Elemental so I know Skeleton always has Death Touch. Would be a 2-for-1 to kill that as well, so it's also a 2-for-1 to play this and draw a card. Oh, Let's strangle the elemental. Against a green-red deck, like Death Touch is a very good ability to keep around. It's probably worth making sure the Baron is still around here. Doomed to Center, nice trump blocker. Sure. Do this and still have the standard bearer mana for after we chump block. So our opponent has 7 mana now. Alright, send in. Goodbye, Doom to Center. That will turn into a 3/3 Death Touch zombie, thanks to Death Baron. And a Silverback Shaman, 5/4 trample. When it dies, they draw a card. Alright, so our opponent's got some value as well, but we've just got so much value here. I think we're still good to win the long game. Now we can even make a copy of Death Baron, double Death Baron with this Sublime Epiphany. That should be a fun time. We're definitely just holding up all the mana for Sublime Epiphany for maximum value. But if they cast anything here, yeah, if they cast anything here, Sublime Epiphany, often the win by itself, we'll see. Alright, so return a non-land permanent to its owner's hand, the Sabertooth Mauler, because it has counters on it that will go away forever. Copy a creature we control, and draw a card, and counter the Bolt Hound. Alright, double Death Baron. The zombie horde is with us. Very Innistrad-y deck here, which is kind of flavorful for the most recent sets available right now. So they are sending in the Silverback Shaman. They will draw a card off of this. If it dies, we can also just take it. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. We can put them to 3 life on the crackback. I suppose they do have the Sabertooth Mauler, of course, to recast, but we can paralyze that. Yeah, I like just putting them to 3 here and getting a 3-power lifelinker thanks to double Death Baron. Blood Burglar's the weakest. So, doing another tally here, we have Tomebound Lich, Teferi's Protege, Sift, Rousing Reed. That's 4 separate ways to discard a card that we've drawn halfway into the game. So I'm going to double check our deck in between rounds. If we have like 7 or 8 ways to discard a card, then I think we're discarding cards consistently enough to just throw in the double green card just to discard for our double Rise Again and our corpse thing. Our corpse cobbler. I don't remember the exact name. Unfortunately, it looks like our opponent has left. They are very over this game here. And there is the concession. All right, so another look at the deck building. It's gonna be a little funky here, a little spicy. But I think I'm gonna play a green card with no green mana. I mean, we could put in 1 Jungle Hollow just to just to be funny, but like without 2 green sources in the deck, it really doesn't matter. All right, so. Did I take this Larcenist over the green-blue land? I think I took this Larcenist over the green-blue land. I am really wishing I didn't do that, because I could have 2 green sources in here. If the stars align and we draw the 2 green sources and the 1 double green card, then we could cast it that way as well. But I'm also probably cool running this in even without any green mana, so let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4... 5. Only have 5 ways to discard a card. That might be a bit much. It's like 1 out of every 8. I guess you draw 7 in your opener and then you draw a card next turn. So on average, like turn 1, one of our one of our 8 cards, or turn 2, one of our 8 cards will let us discard a Howling Giant if we've drawn it. Plus, we don't have to discard the Howling Giant until we have 7 mana anyway, because it would have been a dead card in our hand, even if we had green, if we didn't have 7 mana on board. So, alright, yet again, not super sure this is the best thing to do, but I'm going to throw in the Howling Giant. I'm even going to cut the Standard Bearer for it. Just make things a little spicier in here. I think the Standard Bearer, we probably should have just flashed it out much earlier in the last game, but I felt like I was constantly just holding up 3 mana for it and then not using it, and that was actually just slowing me down a lot in the grand scheme of things. So I'm not confident I can even play that card correctly, so let's just not fuss with it. And I guess, like, if you think about it, if the correct way to play that card was just going to be running it out as the 3 mana 3/1 and trading it off, then it's pretty filler power level there. I think I'm going to keep this hand. It is certainly risky, but we have Skeleton turn 1, Burglar turn 2. We're on the draw here. Like, we don't need double blue till we have 6 mana. We only need a single blue for that removal on turn 4. And there's the single blue. Now we just need to draw 1 more land to be able to cast our Sleep Paralysis and our Skeleton Archer, and then pretty much the whole hand is active. Alright, and that's another blue mana as well, so it pays off pretty perfectly here. Our opponent is on blue and red. An island and a mountain from them. And that is it. They are stuck on 2 mana here. Well, sometimes the villains get rewarded and the heroes get nothing. So they kept a 2-lander with both of their colors, but didn't draw any more lands. I kept a 2-lander with just black and drew perfectly, and they are going to scoop them up there. So, yep, we were certainly the bad guys that game. Not much of a game of Magic there. As we head into round 3, we are 2-0. Thanks to some good luck on our end, or I guess alternatively, some poor luck from our opponents. Either way you'd like to call it. So I am pretty excited to be drafting a lot of these core sets formats. You know, core sets, sure, there's some basic bread and butter drafting, but I don't know, there's just something pretty cool and unique about some of the archetypes they put in here. Like, even if they're tried and true stuff like red-black sacrifice or blue-white flyers, it's still fun to draft them in the core sets format. Now, we are drafting something a little bit more alternative, blue-black reanimator. Kind of just blue-black zombies, though. But it's still pretty classic to like Magic's history. But it is also nice. The power level does feel like it is drawn down a little bit, certainly from the Ravnica Mixer drafts we were playing last week, but also even a bit from, like, from Innistrad. Just can bring things a little more back to your bread and butter of Magic gameplay as well. Fetid Imp from our opponent, and they're playing black and white. That Fetid Imp is a 1/2 flyer for a black mana. They can give it Death Touch until end of turn. Let's just get a Blood Burglar out here, I think. I can start attacking into that. If they want to take the trade, we can just get the Imp out of the way, and if they don't want to take the trade, we're gaining some life. Uh-oh. Alright, well, an excellent card from our opponent, the Bloodthirsty Aerialist, and they are on black-white, which is the color pair where they could gain extra life. That's a 2/3 flyer, and when they gain life, they put a +1/+1 counter onto it. So that is super bad for us. That also makes playing the Blood Burglar pretty bad, because they ended up with a 3 toughness creature, so our Death Baron doesn't lend itself well to an attack here, whereas if we'd played Reassembling Skeleton, we could attack here with Death Baron. If we played Doom Dissenter, we still couldn't do much. I guess we could cash in the Doom Dissenter and turn it into a zombie here. But yeah, playing the Aerialist means Reassembling Skeleton would have ended up being the best 2-drop there. No, please don't put a counter on Aerialist. Okay. Basri's Lieutenant, an excellent 4-mana card from our opponent. 4 mana for a 3/4 Vigilance, protection from multicolored. They put a counter on a creature, and whenever one of their creatures with the counter on it dies, they create a 2/2 with Vigilance. So just a really good deal there. I'm going to go ahead and just kill Bloodthirsty Aerialist before they gain any life. Well, we can still kill that, but even just Basri's Lieutenant alongside this Fetid Imp is a pretty big deal. Infernal Scarring on the Basri's Lieutenant, gonna make it a 5/4, and when it dies, they draw a card. You know, they have 2 cards in hand here. We trade 2 creatures here. They draw a card, they'll have 3 in hand and just the Fetid Imp on board. We'll still have 4 in hand against their stuff here. That being said, it is not going to be hard to establish a good blocker for the Lieutenant. It's only protection from multicolored. If we just play Reassembling Skeleton, we've got an excellent blocker for it right there. Yeah, I think we can wait. Go down to 14. I don't think the onboard trade looks that bad, but considering what we have in hand, we have much better blocks next turn. Do have Rise again, but no creatures in grave. As soon as we draw something to discard a card, we can discard this Howling Giant here, and really go for it there. Just go for the gold. So here's our Reassembling Skeleton and Doomed Dissenter, and we will be passing turn. Hopefully they don't have any removal that can exile our cards. If they don't, then we can just keep bringing the skeleton back no matter what happens. Keep the ground state locked up. I guess all they need is to kill Death Baron, and then the skeleton can't kill the Lieutenant. Alright. Looks like our control is locked up for now. Death Baron and skeleton. Just gonna keep the ground all locked away here. We even draw a Sanitarium Skeleton as well. Alright, so let's attack in with Skeleton and Doomed Dissenter. Attacking with Doomed Dissenter, because if it dies it turns into a 3/3 Death Toucher, which can then start attacking in and trading in with whatever blocks it. And attacking with Sanitarium Skeleton, or sorry, Reassembling Skeleton, because we have Sanitarium Skeleton as the backup blocker. And then we still have blockers for everything they have on board. We have the Sanitarium Skeleton block Basri's Lieutenant, and the Blood Burglar block the Hired Blade. Whether or not Death Baron sticks around, that'll be the play. Alright, Death Baron's still around for now, just another land off the top from our opponent. That Imp is putting in work here, we're going down to 10 life now. But we have a good amount of time to draw into a way to reanimate Howling Giant. We just need the way to discard it. We do have the Rise again here. Alright, so I can't afford to attack with all of our Death Touchers here. I think I would rather attack with the one that I can replay untapped. So let's attack with Sanitarium Skeleton and Doomed Dissenter. I guess we can cash in our Blood Burglar in the future, just to gain 2 life and survive 1 more hit from the Fetid Imp. We're definitely not at that point now, but that's a possible future. Alright, they are going to go ahead and block the Doomed Dissenter here, stop that 1 damage this turn. But we will get a 3/3 Death Toucher out of that. Cool. I do have some expensive cards in here and some card draw. I should probably still play the Swamp. I was considering not doing it because then I guess technically if we ended up with 8 cards in our hand, we could then discard Howling Giant to hand size. But the odds that I draw that many cards that I don't immediately want to cast to affect this board state are so just insurmountably low that I don't think it's correct to hold the land here. So let's stop being silly there. Play the lands out in case we draw like a Sift and want to play 2 lands that turn. or want to play a land that turn. But draw into another one. Well, this imp is putting in work. We've got a lot of outs to it if we can hit them, but we just can't guarantee that we can. And I am at the point now where I can't afford to attack too heavily. I guess I'll just attack with the best power, the most damage that we can. Ooh, my bad. So what do we have to get out of this? We have Rousing Reed to give something flying and discard Howling Giant. Rousing Reed has to be our best card in the whole deck right now. Dwindle can shut off the Fetid Imp. Skymarch Bloodletter would just block once. It wouldn't do that much. It's just a 2-2 against that 2-3. Obsessive Stitcher would get us there, discarding the Howling Giant. Tomebound Lich discards the Giant. Sif discards the Giant. Sleep Paralysis locks down the Imp. Skeleton Archer shoots it. Sublime Epiphany can bounce it. Alright, we've got like 7 or 8 outs here, so I feel pretty good. Just take another look at the deck here. Do still have to cross our fingers. It's possible they're all on the bottom here. So they did cash in the Bosri's Lieutenant there to draw another card. Ooh! There's the Skeleton Archer. We'll see if they have interaction here. If they can kill the Death Baron in response, this won't go off. But if they can't, we get to shoot that Imp for Death Touch damage. Oh my god, they do! +1/+0 and indestructible until end of turn. Well, that means no attacks here are good. Could still attack with Blood Burglar to gain 2 life. My board is big enough that that is a consideration. Then I could rise again on it to gain more life. Taking 2 a turn, we're still at 6. I feel like we're at a good enough life total to wait on that still. Although Epicure of Blood's effect is a little scary. They do have this vampire, whenever they gain life, each opponent loses a life. Uh-oh, Skymarch Bloodletter, another flyer. And it gains them a life and makes us lose a life when they play it, which actually translates into 2 more damage to us because of Epicure. So we're down to 2 now. And just hit an island here. This is terrible. Now we're crossing our fingers that they kill Skeleton Archer, and then we can bring it back with Rise again. Being one of our few outs here. Ooh. Alright. So we gained the 2 life, and they did kill the Skeleton Archer, so we can recast Skeleton Archer to shoot one of their flyers to go down to 2 life instead of 0. Yeah. I mean, that's a thing. Gives us 1 more turn to draw into, again, all that stuff. Sleep Paralysis, Rousing Reed, that kind of stuff. Although Sift is not an answer anymore. We can't reanimate Howling Giant without Rise again. Alright, down to 2 life now. Skymarch Bloodletter coming in. Final draw. Dismal Backwater gain 1 single life, so we'll go to 1 life after their next attack. Okay. I need to make sure I can block this 3-2, that's for sure, but I can definitely do it. Even without these 2. They could kill, like, Death Baron here, and then I just trump block. Reanimate the skeleton. If they top deck removal, we still survive. Alright, they take all that. Another land from our opponent, just attack with the Bloodletter. We're down to 1 life. Final draw, round 2. Sublime Epiphany. We can make a copy of Skeleton Archer with that, which can shoot the Bloodletter. Put the battalion back to their hand and draw a card here. Do I want to do that right now before they draw a card and play around instant speed removal? Or do I want to wait until they do something? That way they might try to cast a good spell. I don't think they will. If they draw something great, they're still just going to attack. And then we're going to cast this in response to them attacking. So that only plays to their benefit if they play it correctly and just wait until post-combat to cast whatever they draw. Because we'll have to just do this when they attack. So Sublime Epiphany, copy Archer, shoot Bloodletter, bounce Battalion, draw a card. And then we can attack with everybody, because we bounced Battalion. Okay. So return Battalion. Copy Archer. Draw a card. Did you have something in hand here? Because they're waiting. Do they have instant speed removal already? If they have instant speed removal already, I hope they use it on Death Baron so I can have our copy of Skeleton Archer just shoot us in the face. But if they use the instant speed removal on Skeleton Archer, then we won't get the copy. All right, well, shoot the Bloodletter. All right. I don't know what they have in hand here. I guess I should play around a flash creature, but I do have one untapped creature. 7, 8. Yeah, we play around a flash creature and save Death Baron this way, and then even if it's a flash creature and they top deck removal, I still have one blocker left over. I like this attack. They did play a flash creature earlier. They had a 3 mana 3/2 flash, so they could have more. They're down to 5, and we're passing turn. They do flash in a creature, Masked Blackguard. A 2/1 that for 3 mana gets +1/+1 till end of turn. They have a ton of mana up. They can buff that a lot. And a Soulmender's the play. They can tap it to gain a life. They have Makeshift Battalion in hand as well, but that's only 3 blockers, and they concede. We managed to pull that victory out in the very end. By the skin of our teeth there. We needed to hit, like, I mean, we had several cards that we could have hit there to survive for a few turns. It's just really funny. The cards that we hit was like gain 1 life, go to 1 life after the next attack. Or like shoot that one, but still get hit for 4, go down to 2, which is dead to 1 more attack. That was an intense game. But a pretty exciting one altogether. Heading into the next round here, we do have a decent hand, no blue mana in it, but we do have Blood Burglar and Death Baron for a 2 and 3 mana card with the 3 swamps needed to cast them. It's decent, no skeletons or zombies to go with the Death Baron here, but I think I'll still keep it. We are on the draw. So we will be seeing some more cards quite soon, and we do immediately hit the blue source, always a fan of that. Drawing quite well overall this draft. And our opponent starts with a turn 2 Alpine Watchdog, 2 mana for a 2/2 Vigilance. They're playing white and blue here. I don't love trading for this Watchdog, but also that's just kind of what's going to happen because it does have Vigilance, so we'll just trade when we attack in anyway. I guess when we attack in, we'd gain 2 life, so we'd go back to 20 and then trade, so I don't know. I'm just going to take the trade now. They had no turn 3 play here. Could be a counterspell for the Death Baron. We'll find out here. Death Baron isn't really doing much for us here. It's a 3 mana 2/2. Alright. Yeah, like Death Baron gets countered, but it really means very little to us in our current hand. Literally nothing to combo with it yet. So that doesn't play out too poorly for us. We do have Sleep Paralysis we could use on the Swift Claw, but it's just a 3/1. We can take a few hits from that. We can take quite a few hits from that and still be fine, so I think I will. Alright, down to 17. They have 4 mana up here. Could be Bone to Ash to counter a creature, I suppose. Could just be like blue-white control here. I could cast Rise again, but that just gets a creature out to trade with Swift Claw, which is not very exciting. I think I'd rather hold on Rise again to be able to recast Gloomsore after it gets countered. if it gets countered, so I think I'm just going to pass. Yeah, now they just cast nothing on turn 4. Alright, next turn they do cast a Steadfast Sentry, which means the shields are down for a Tolarian Kraken that we've drawn into. Great draw. Now we have a 4/6 on this board. Lets us tap or untap a creature whenever we draw a card for 1 mana. Not really going to be playing around with that effect. So they have their own sleep paralysis. We will be taking 6 here. Kraken will be tapped down. Actually, we get to untap it with its own effect. That's kind of hilarious. It just fights through a sleep paralysis. I would like to do that, but I don't have enough mana to do that and Gloomsower here. So I think I'm just going to cast Gloomsower while they are, again, tapped out from any potential counter spells. But I will next turn. I'll definitely untap the Kraken next turn. So Gloomsower does drain some life from them whenever it gets blocked. So Gloomsower is a pretty excellent attacker. Alright, so they had to use 2 removal spells on the Tolarian Kraken thanks to its ability. They had to Sleep Paralysis it and then Swift Vengeance it. So sad that it's dead, but nice that it drew 2 spells from them. They do have double blue and 2 more up here, so it could be the counter spell. Could be Rewind to counter anything, but it also could be Bone to Ash, which is in multiple of these sets, which can only counter creatures, in which case Rise Again on Kraken could be huge here. I think I'm cool with going for Rise Again on Kraken, banking on it being Bone to Ash, and then if it happens to be Rewind, where they can counter anything, we can still just, like, cast Sift next turn, and we're still sitting pretty behind an 8/6, so let's see if this resolves here. It does! Alright, so if they have removal, quite likely that it's, or not removal, but a counterspell, quite likely it only counters a creature. Aerial Assault, more removal from our opponent. That will kill our Gloomsower, our 8/6, but we do have another Rise from Ash or whatever. I'm not going to attack in here, so I'm not going to pay anything. I'd rather have all of the mana to cast whatever we draw off of Sift. And let's see what we draw off of Sift. Some spicy stuff. We get to discard this Howling Giant for if we draw another Rise Again. We could tap or untap a bunch of stuff, but that would soak up all our mana, so I do not want to do that. I think I'm going to go for Skeleton Archer. They still have that 4 mana up, so here comes the Bone to Ash, I'm assuming. No! Alright, I was playing around a counterspell that just did not exist the whole time. If I attack here, they get to crack back and we have to trade, so I don't love that attack. I guess we would trade and they'd be at 8 against a 4/6. It's not awful. I could also just go to 5. You know what, let's attack. Let's attack and just go to 5 here. They're white-blue. What are they going to have that gives like +5/+5 at instant speed? Let's get real aggressive. Alright, well, I guess there's also that. They have played 3 removal spells that destroy specifically tapped creatures. No, we're good here. Go to 5. Alright, I get to hold on to double Sleep Paralysis after I cast this Strangling Spores for their next 2 creatures, so if they're out of removal, this will be 3 swings and they're out here. Alright, looks like might have been, yep, 3 swings. You're out. That's 5-0 now for this blue-black entry to the Core Sets Mixer Premier Draft format. No, that's 4-0. Counting my chickens before they hatch here. Just 4-0, not 5-0 yet, but still an excellent record, 4-0. 4 wins is where we get pretty much in the money on gyms. 5 wins is where we actually get in the money and make a little bit of value. Alright, I'm going to keep this hand. We do need to draw a land, but it can be any land, and then Tomebound Lich draws us another card, just discarding one of these skeletons. I guess with double Rise again, we could just run out a skeleton turn 1, a skeleton turn 2, and then hope to draw something something to reanimate off the Lich. Plus Rise again. And then if we don't, we just discard one of these two. That's actually pretty solid to me too. We probably just cast the skeletons rather than discard one to the Lich. Seems fine to me. Either way, looks like a really fancy looking turn 1, turn 2, turn 3 skeleton zombie tribal going on. Alright, and there we go. Our first draw is the third land that we need to get this hand operating. Just continuing with our excellent draws so far. Ooh, Spectral Sailor, an excellent card from our opponent. 1 mana flash it in as a 1/1 flyer, and for 4 mana they can draw a card off of it, so a really good activated ability on it. And Heartpiercer Bow does shut off our reassembling skeleton. I'm still going to run it out here. Am I still going to run it out here, or am I just going to discard it to Lich? Heartpiercer Bow, for 1 mana, they slap it onto one of their creatures, and that creature does a damage every time it attacks to one of our creatures. So if I play a 1/1, they just slap that bow on there, shoot the 1/1. Would cost 1 of their mana to do it. I think it's just more likely that we end up drawing a dud off of Tomebound Lich and wanting to just discard the skeleton than that the skeleton does anything by being on board, because it's just so likely it dies to this bow repeatedly if I bring it back. And if they have nothing to cast this turn, yeah, I was going to say, if they have nothing to cast this turn, they'll just slap the bow on anyway. So the fact that they did that, even though we didn't play a 1/1, means they definitely would have if we did. Alright, so Vial of Dragonfire from our opponent as well. They can sacrifice to deal 2 damage to a creature, so they can do 3 damage to a creature 1 time. If they put those 2 cards together, their powers combined. So let's see what we hit off Tomebound Lich. A land. I do want a land, so I will discard Reassembling Skeleton. We definitely want to make it to 6 mana with this hand. So they could stack together the Heartpiercer Bow plus the Vial of Dragonfire to kill the Tomebound Lich if they want, because if they don't, it has that good ability whenever we deal combat damage to them as well, making us draw a card and discard a card. So that is what they're going to do this turn, stack those 2 together. They still have 2 mana left afterwards if they have a 2-drop, but it looks like a no to that. Alright, we do have 4 mana now. Could cast Doom Dissenter and get a Reassembling Skeleton out, but again, Spectral Sailor is just going to keep playing around. I think I just want to drop a 2/3, something sturdy against that Heartpiercer Bow, plus something that sets up our draws, letting us draw and discard in the future, set up our Rise Agains to maybe reanimate something big. Uh-oh, dealing a damage to Teferi's Protege here. We'll see if they have the backup to finish it off. They do. Fathom Fleet Cutthroat it is. Destroy a creature that was dealt damage this turn. Definitely very well drafted around the Heartpiercer Bow here. That card was the bane of M20 draft for a while because it is a common, so if you get duplicates of them, it can be really ridiculous where you're dealing 3 damage every time you attack. But even the 1 copy with the right cards around it, like Fathom Fleet Cutthroat, Vial of Dragonfire here, there's a lot you can do with it, and our opponent is really showing off their prowess with the card here. So we could Rise Again on our Tomebound Lich. Seems pretty solid to me. We can block that and trade with the Cutthroat there. We also get to draw a discard a card when we do that. The alternative is to play Dissenter Skeleton, which again isn't that exciting. They can blow up the Dissenter and we just get a 2/2, which isn't big enough to block Cutthroat. I guess then we could double block Cutthroat. Yeah, I'm really just trying to draw a way to like kill this Sailor here. So kind of like just drawing, discarding a card by reanimating the Lich here. And there's the 6th land for Sublime Epiphany, so I'm actually going to discard Doomed Dissenter. Alright, offer the trade for Tomebound Lich. I guess now that we have Sublime Epiphany in hand, we don't want this Tomebound Lich to die, so just slap our nice little chump block on there. Not be too unhappy with it. If they don't play a blocker, we also do get to draw another card off the Lich on an attack. Alright, well, I mean, we get to attack in here. We have Sublime Epiphany up, so nothing can really go wrong if they cast something crazy. We can just counter it. Alright, they've cast nothing. Draw, discard here. Island. Well, we will discard that. And then pass turn, holding up Sublime Epiphany. I don't want to just tap out for it until they tap out, and they have tapped out on Spectral Sailor, so we can counter its ability, put it back into their hand, make another Tomebound Lich here, and draw a card that's not actually that great, so I think I'm just going to let it resolve still. Just hoping they cast something here. They have 6 mana up. If they don't cast anything, I guess we do get to just get some skeletons back. But we're under some pressure here. 4 damage a turn is going to kill us 3 turns from now. I guess not against our lifelink, but gets close. Arcane Encyclopedia. They can sit there and keep drawing cards off of that. That is not good for us. That is repeatable value for them. Seems pretty dangerous. Hopefully they don't have cancel with that 3 mana left. Alright, so bounce a non-land permanent. Make them spend the 3 mana to recast Bow and equip it here. If I bounce Sailor, it only costs 1 to replay Sailor and then 1 to equip, plus Sailor will be untapped. If I bounce Cutthroat, they get to kill something again with Cutthroat's ETB, so I don't like that. Let's see here. They do have literal cancel. So the Encyclopedia resolves, and we have drawn the card to discard to rise again here. That's pretty spicy. Yeah, I don't have the mana to do like everything I want to do here, but just reanimating this Howling Giant has to be the best thing we can do, right? It's got to be better than dwindling. Alright, that was pretty cool. Now we have a giant reach creature as well, of course. We can start picking up our Sanitarium Skeleton when we have extra mana and just discarding that to Tomebound Lich to make sure we're still drawing some real stuff. Alright, and our opponent just doesn't have attacks against this 5/5 reach. And we can even turn it into a 6/6 flyer instead with Rousing Reed. I like that. We're drawing cards off of that as well. I could return Sanitarium Skeleton before I do that. But if I hit like a land and a Strangling Spores, I'm really going to want to cast Strangling Spores on Sailor before they can draw more off of it. I guess it's cheaper to draw an Encyclopedia, but they can draw multiples on Sailor. And also Dwindling Sailor seems solid to me. Or the Sentinel. Yeah, plus we have so many 3 mana cards here, I don't think we want to spend 3 for the Sanitarium Skeleton's effect. Okay, so we could Sleep Paralysis the Sailor to guarantee we hit for 6, and then they have to hold up the Sentinel mana. If we do that, we have to discard one of these. Don't think I want to do that. Let's just discard the Swamp and cast another flyer this turn, and then next turn we'll shut off their flyers. Shut off the both of them with Paralysis plus Dwindle. They do get 1 chump block in on whatever I dwindle, but make sure we're killing them pretty quickly with these flyers. Tezzeret, Artifice Master, creates a 1/1 Thopter every single turn. You're hoping that is going to be enough blockers to save them. Which it is for now, because now I can only tap down one of their 2 flyers, the Sailor or the Thopter, which means only one of my flyers gets in this turn. So I only do 2 damage. I think I still want to do it to their face. And there's no point in dwindling a 1/1 flyer. Yeah, because it's just going to die when it chump blocks anyway, and it's going to be forced into a chump block here regardless. So I think I sleep paralysis the 1/1 flyer, because then they're forced to chump block with Spectral Sailor, so we kill the one with the better ability permanently, and leave the other one tapped. I could send in Tomebound Lich as well, that gets like this 3/3 out of the way. 1 less creature for the rest of my board to keep getting in, but then Salvager of Ruin puts the Cutthroat back in their hand, and then the Heartpiercer Bow could accomplish some stuff, killing our Howling Giant, so I really don't want to kill the Cutthroat. With the Salvager of Ruin plus Cutthroat, they can bring Cutthroat back from the grave and combo off with it if that dies for any reason. So I think I need to do everything in my power to make sure that doesn't die. Alright. Definitely play land for turn, and then we'll be reassembling our Skelly Man. Alright, so they do of course have 2 flying blockers here. They have the 1/1 Thopter and the Gargoyle Sentinel. There's a Surge Mare. Doesn't do much. Can't be blocked by our green creatures. We can still block with Tomebound Lich. It's like +2/-2. Yeah, not too scared of that one. Obviously attacking with Fathom Fleet Cutthroat. If it dies, Salvager brings it back and they kill Howling Giant. So we're just not going to let that happen. I mean, I guess Howling Giant wouldn't die this turn, but it would definitely in the future. Alright. So they have the mana to activate Gargoyle Sentinel as another flying blocker, which they can then chump block Howling Giant and block Bloodletter with Gargoyle Sentinel, in which case they'll kill the Bloodletter, take no damage, and keep the Sentinel around. So I think we have to dwindle the Sentinel. They have 4 blockers total. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 attackers. If I attack with everybody, I get in for at least 1, 2, 3, 4. Put them to 2 life. Not quite there. So I don't think I do that. I think I just slap the Sentinel with this thing. And this might require them to pop the Salvager here. I guess we are recasting Sanitarium Skeleton here after this. They have a 2/1, a 1/1. They don't have any blue mana for Surge Mare, so it's not like they can kill much of what we're attacking with. No, all attacks probably good here now. Like, there's no way they crack back for 12 either. They can buff the Mare twice. It's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 power, and we're gaining a life here. Yeah, this makes an attack for lethal next turn very likely, I think. Because they're not going to kill any of our wolves here. And we are hitting them down to 2 life, I believe. Because the only way they could kill a wolf is with Salvager of Ruin, and they're going to sacrifice Salvager of Ruin to bring Gargoyle Sentinel back from their grave to their hands. They have a flying blocker again. Cool. Yeah, so we lose no creatures here. I guess we deal 3 to them. I miscounted. Put them to 3 life. But we still have all of our creatures, and we've whittled down multiple of theirs. Even if they do get to recast the Salvager, because we're going to have a Sanitarium Skeleton here as well. Yeah, they have 4 blockers next turn. That, and that. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 attackers. That's exactly enough to break through. 1, 2, 3 damage for lethal, unless they can cast 2 blockers this turn. Because, like, if they just slap a bow onto a cutthroat and kill our resembling skeleton to remove one of our attackers, then they've removed one of their blockers. So that doesn't help them block with more stuff. They're going into the think tank here. They might have a way out of this one if they have a removal spell. They definitely do. A removal spell plus a blocker plus another blocker from Tezzeret gets there. All right, draw 2 off of Tezzeret. That's 1 less blocker on the board here. That means they are digging for something good to get out of this one. We'll see what they have. No, nothing. They concede the game. Now we are 5-0. In our first Premier Draft of the core sets. I guess our first of the return to the core sets Premier Draft format. They did this format earlier this year, I think, like right before Strixhaven, or right after Strixhaven, somewhere around there. But there we go, 5 wins, 0 losses, getting 1,600 gems and 4 packs out of this at least, and potentially getting even more if we can win our next 2 rounds here. Of course, without a single loss under our belt, we've got a little bit of breathing room to get these next 2 victories. Alright, here we are in round 6. Tomebound Lich turn 3, Archer and Spores turn 4. Slower hand here, but it's got much better mana than a lot of the hands I've been keeping. And, yeah, some pretty good cards in here. I will keep it. Only thing I'm really worried about in this hand is aggressive strategies. And starting with a Temple of Mystery, a green-blue land. Not sure how likely our opponent is to be aggressive here. Green-blue tends to be like ramping up and then playing some stuff later. Ooh, this could be somebody who's very used to the Ravnica mixer drafts and they drafted some lands highly. We see green-blue and green-black. I suppose it could also literally just be us from the alternate dimension. Ooh, Cloud Conceer is an excellent comp. This card's just absurd. 3 mana for a 2/1 flyer and draw a card when you cast it. Well, when it enters the battlefield. Super nice card. Would love to have 1 or 2 of those in here. But we will repay them in kind here with a great 3-drop ourselves. Our Tomebound Lich, essentially just drawing us a card here. The Howling Giant, not exactly doing anything in our hand. But could put in some work from our graveyard. Another Cloud Conceer from our opponent. Alright, another 2/1 flyer, draw a card when they play it. 4 mana now. Thankfully, Skeleton Archer plays really well against these, because it does do 1 damage to them. And finish them off. So the reverse curse against that card advantage our opponent just got. Draw and discard again, just discarding lands now. We've got a ton of them. Getting some great value off of Tomebound Lich. We got the enter the battlefield and an attack trigger off of it. 5 mana now from our opponent, and a Rock's Oracle is the play, a 5 mana 4/2 that draws a card when they plays it. Our opponent is just never going to run out of cards here, that's for sure. We do draw into our Obsessive Stitcher to bring back our Howling Giant. Unfortunately, that's a card that'll bring it back slowly, which is not ideal, but I think I still just cast that here. Casting that means I won't be attacking with Lich. The only way I would be attacking with Lich here would be if I Strangling Spores that Rocks Oracle, but I really don't want to trade with that into my Lich. I'm fine trading it into the Skeleton Archer, but I'm definitely not attacking with Tomebound Lich against a 4-2 here. Alright, and they do take the trade with the Skeleton Archer. There's a Drowsing Tyrannodon from our opponent, a 3-3 as long as they control a creature with power 4 or greater. It does not have Defender, but otherwise it does, so currently a 3-3 Defender. Alright, see if they're going to kill our Obsessive Stitcher here. One of the biggest reasons it's not good is because, or not good, it's not as good as just 5 mana Resurrect would be, is because your opponent has a turn to kill it like that. And they did kill it, so we could strangle their flyer. We could also strangle their ground creature to keep getting in with the Lich. That's the riskier play, because then we could end up just dying to this flyer if we don't draw more removal, but we have multiple sleep paralysis, dwindle and stuff. I feel like we can draw a backup removal spell later. I want to hopefully get aggressive here and get some things going. Hopefully draw into something great. Sift is something great. So I'll discard this Sorcerer because it's not good right now, and then cast Blood Burglar, and then cast Sift next turn. But Blood Burglar plus Tomebound Lich, 3 lifelink power, that'll completely stop the Cloud Concealer damage. If we can keep getting in with them, and Sanctum of the Fruitful Harvest doesn't impact the board at all, just gives them some mana. So we might be able to get in with them, yeah, to the point where they don't attack with Cloud Concealer. So alright, Sift it is here, draw 3 and discard 1. Not the greatest draws, but Teferi's Protege will turn into some good draws for us. Definitely offer the trade a 2-2 lifelink for a 3-2 flyer here. They take the trade. Maybe Tomebound Lich will be getting in after all. No. Feral Invocation from our opponent, so our 2-2 lifelink trades for the first half of Feral Invocation. Of course, the aura sticks around, so it's not ideal for us, because they do get a permanent buff. But now we know that that's there. The element of surprise is gone, at least. And they are slamming in with the Cloud Concealer. This Thorn Lieutenant, this Thorn Lieutenant can turn into like a giant attacker, right? Yeah, 6'6", 6'7" attacker. So we're definitely going to block that with Death Touch. So we can Rise again, and we can use Teferi's Protege. So I suppose we'll Protege first, see what we draw. But we're probably just reanimating the giant. I think we just keep Kraken in hand here. Alright, reanimate the giant. We have no good attacks, though. So the giant gets to trade for their flyer and still leave behind a couple 2-2s. So if they do attack with the flyer, we will take the trade because we still got good value from just enter the battlefield effects. So an Omen Speaker from our opponent, 2 mana for a 1-3, scry 2, when enters the battlefield, Sleep Paralysis, an excellent draw. That's what I've been looking for to get rid of that. Although we do have to consider getting rid of the Thorn Lieutenant with it as well, because that will block just as well as it. They have the 6 mana to make it a 6-7 on blocks. Are we just digging for like our Death Baron now? Sort of feel like we are. I guess Tolarian Kraken does put in a lot of work too, so let's get this Tolarian Kraken down, especially with Teferi's Protege alongside it. Well, Bone to Ash from our opponent, counter that, draw a card. I was going to say with Teferi's Protege beside it, we can make sure to tap down their 2 good blockers every turn. Looks like we can't do that now. I could attack with Howling Giant here to trade with Cloud Concealer and then Sleep Paralysis on Lieutenants. They'll get a 1-1 out of that, but then they'll just have a 1-3 and a 1-1 on the board. Yeah, because they're tapped out, the only way they trade for Giant is with Cloud Concealer here, which is a fine trade for us. Could even send in Tomebound Lich, because the only way they trade for that is Thorn Lieutenant or Cloud Conceer. Although then I don't have good blockers for Thorn Lieutenant, but I don't really expect they crack back. I guess they will if we attack with both of these. They can just be like, okay, I'll take 1 damage, trade there, and crack back for a boatload. We have Reassembling Skeleton, though, so like we're so safe. Yeah, no, we have an infinite chump blocker. If we're worried about crackbacks, we just hold on to Reassembling Skeleton. Alright, so we do get to kill that Thorn Lieutenant, which feels very nice. But the Cloud Conceer remains, and Hunter's Edge will be finishing off our 5/5 reach there. Well, time to Sleep Paralysis the Cloud Conceer. Keep that tapped down. We don't have to worry about that. All they have to be worried about is this 1/3. We can attack with 3 2-power creatures and hit for 5 damage a turn if we attack with our whole field, or alternatively draw a card and only hit for 3. I think I would rather hit for 5 than draw a card off Protege here. So yeah, they're down to 8, pass turn, keeping the land in hand for draw discard. Just a Manalith from our opponent. There's a Dwindle we don't need to play, but we have it for later. Hit for 5 again. They're down to 3, 1 more attack is lethal. And they scoop them up, just drew a couple mana rocks and lands at the end there. A little bit of flooding out for our opponent. Our opponent's deck had some really good mana fixing. Manalith and the Sanctum and the Great Dual Lands. Pretty cool stuff from them, but that will lead us into 6 wins now. 1,800 gems and 5 packs. 1 more win away from a 7-win run, potentially my first 7-0 in quite a while here. Got my fingers crossed as we head into what could be the final game of the draft. But if you've been watching for a while, you all know my fingers are always crossed. This is a super awkward hand, but if we draw the right stuff, it can really go off. If we draw basically just like Rousing Reed to play on turn 3, then we just play Skeleton, then we throw a Rousing Reed on it, discarding Giant, and turn 5 we Rise Again the Giant. It's hard to mulligan any hand that has both of your colors and a good amount of lands like this hand does. But this hand, I will fully admit, really falls apart if we don't draw the correct kind of card. Luckily we have a Sift gets us there. Sift to discard the Giant. We even have a Dwindle now for some interaction. We're drawing really well so far. And Sift even helps us draw the 5th land we need to cast Rise Again, so things are looking really great for us here. There's a Chandra Spitfire from our opponent, but we're likely to just Sift here and let that do whatever it wants. Whenever we're dealt non-combat damage, that gets +3/+0. Yeah, that's whatever. We'll just Sift. Did not actually draw the 5th land here, so it might fall apart, but we did dig 3 cards deeper towards that 5th land. So more likely that we hit it on top than we would have otherwise. We'll see. Taking 1 damage from that Chandra Spitfire, and they will tap out for a Chandra, which is terrifying. They add double red with that and grab a Heartfire Immolator. And alright, no Rise Again here, I suppose. So we can only cast 1 spell this turn. Dwindle, Sorcerer of the Fang, or Skymarch Bloodletter. Chandra could -2 to deal 2 to us, and then the Spitfire gets +2 power as well. Yeah, this Chandra's a bad time, giving -2 to some stuff. Yeah, dealing 2 damage. If we just play like a Skymarch Bloodletter, they just shoot it. If we just play a Stitcher, they just shoot it with Chandra plus Immolator. Things are looking pretty nasty for us here. I kind of like the idea of playing Stitcher here, because then they're likely to crack the Immolator, so this at least trades for something. Because we have Rise Again back up anyway to get back the Howling Giant. We just need to hit a land there, and we don't have a way to draw another card unless the Stitcher hangs around, so we kind of just go for it here. Yeah, like if I just play a Bloodletter, they're just like, boop, shoot it. Alright, keep all their creatures on board and still attack us with those. At least this way we might be salving a little bit of the damage here. Just salving the wound a bit. Getting the Immolator to crack to kill the Stitcher, potentially. Because they can sacrifice that to deal damage equal to its power to a target. Wow, yeah, Chandra's really good with Chandra's Spitfire. A +1 just makes the Spitfire deal 3 damage to us. Even if they don't want to throw that way. Oh no, a volcanic geyser here for 3 damage to the Stitcher to kill it means they don't have to crack the Immolator to kill it. Immolator gets buffed from Prowess, Spitfire gets buffed from Chandra. That's 6 damage here unless I chump block. Oh, we'll take the chump block even though the skeleton comes back tapped. Alright, we do hit the 5th land while they're tapped out to rise again, get the Howling Giant out, and hope to take some things back here. It's been a pretty wild game of Magic on both sides. We've both done some absurd things now. See how it plays out for us. Alright, 2 damage to kill one of the wolves. Chandra's down to 3 loyalty. Crash through, draw a card, buff the Immolator. Very much a blue-red spells deck here, blue-red prowess. Alright, past the turn, they cannot kill the Howling Giant there. So Spitfire will not be coming in. We have 6 mana now, enough to cast Sublime Epiphany. I could hold all my mana for that, or I could dwindle this Spitfire and get attacking. Dwindle the Spitfire and cast a Bloodletter. It's pretty cool, but I think, kind of as always, just holding up Sublime Epiphany mana is a pretty just bonkers way to close out a game. So we'll try for that here. Just counter the next thing they try to do, really. And I will not be attacking in here, so I can hold that Spitfire at bay. I don't really want to attack... I mean, I could attack Chandra here. But when I'm planning on a Sublime Epiphany, I want to put our Howling Giant in, like, absolutely 0 danger, so I can copy the Howling Giant and get another 5/5 and 2 2/2s to just have an excellent time. Sublime Epiphany, by the power level of cards in core sets, is just absolutely absurd. Alright, so, I mean, we'll let Spellgorger Weird come out. They would not minus Chandra if they didn't have a reason to hold up all that mana. So I feel like we don't just run out the Sublime Epiphany to, like, counter that random thing. We just wait till they do whatever they were holding their mana for. Alright, well, it must be a counterspell then. 4 mana to counter and 1 mana to use Immolator, I guess. Alright, there is Convolute for 3 mana, isn't there? I'm so confused why they minus Chandra last turn. It had to be like 3 mana to hold up a counterspell and 1 mana to use Immolator or something. So I'm again going to let this resolve because they still have the mana to counter a thing. They have to have just like Convolute here if it's a counterspell. There's 3 mana counter unless I pay 4. Shoot the wolf. Just let Chandra die here. Okay. Alright.
Hold on. I'm gonna try something new.
Okay, well, the only way that this goes wrong is if they cast something. If they cast something, they don't have mana to... They don't have mana for a counterspell, which means I counter whatever they do. Yeah, this is easy. Alright, cool. And now we get there. We get the full value. Alright, so we counter Spellgorger Weird's ability, we counter the spell, we bounce the Immolator and take no damage. We get another Howling Giant, we draw a card. Alright, and they do scoop them up to the Sublime Epiphany, as tends to happen. And that will be 7-0 for the blue-black deck. A lot of that, let's be frank here, a lot of that was on the back of Sublime Epiphany, but some of that was on the back of reanimating some big stuff. Mainly Howling Giant whenever we could. The Tolarian Kraken actually performed incredibly well as well, because the removal spells our opponents had for it that one time were removal spells that just keep it tapped, and it can just untap itself, so that was a pretty cute combo there. But overall, a really fun time in the first Premier Draft of the core sets mixer draft format here. So 7-0, not a single loss. Great way to start the format. As always, I will be back again very soon with more limited. If you're interested in these videos, just stick around on the channel. I will be playing these Premier Draft core sets as often as I can until next week, when we have the launch of the new Innistrad Crimson Vow set that I will be hopping into, with plenty of drafts of that. So if you're interested in some more drafts, some more Magic Arena videos in general, then there'll be plenty of that coming to you very soon. So as always, thank you all again for watching, and I will be back again for more Magic Arena very soon.